Ever had that quiet thought on a Monday morning? If you're a pastor, I bet you have. We should be further along by now. I mean, you poured your heart into Sunday. You're clear on your mission, but somehow it feels like your church is just not really moving forward, at least the way that you hoped. If that's you, one, you're not alone. You may be facing, though, what I commonly call the leadership gap. Here's what I mean. Most pastors, that at least I know, don't struggle with theology. They can quote verses, preach the gospel, and shepherd people really well. But when it comes to leading the organization towards that mission, things like creating systems, alignment, accountability, that's where things can get a little dicey and even stall or stagnate. And when progress stalls, right, the pressure really does begin to build. And you start asking questions like, why does everything feel harder than it should? Or why aren't my leaders owning this mission with me? Why does it feel like I'm carrying all the weight by myself? That's leadership pressure. And by the way, not that you don't know this, it's exhausting. So let me start by giving you some good news. You don't need to work harder to resolve this issue, this tension, but you probably need to work more intentionally. After leading at every level in church world, for the most part, I got to help plant a church. I got to work and revive a church as a lead pastor. I got to lead a really rapidly growing church. Very lucky to do that. Pastored a mega church that became a campus location of a mega church. And so I have been through a lot of different versions of church myself, and I've consulted with hundreds of pastors since. And I have noticed something very consistent. Looking back at all of my experiences and definitely looking at all these pastors and churches that I've been working with over the last several years. Thriving churches, and here's what I've learned. Thriving churches aren't led by perfect leaders. They're not. However, they are led by intentional ones. Okay, a thriving church doesn't all have a perfect lead pastor. There is no such thing because we're people. So thriving churches, they're not led by perfect leaders, but the leaders of thriving churches lead with intentionality. Okay, intentional leaders, they don't just hope the mission happens. They build clarity and systems and accountability so that it does, to make sure that it does. And they do it really through 6 consistent leadership actions. I'm going to walk you through all 6 of these leadership actions. Again, there's a lot more we can unpack, and in future episodes, I'll probably dig into each of these more individually. But let me just give you the overview of these 6 intentional leadership actions. Okay, number 1, clarify and communicate mission, vision, target, and strategy. All 4 of those things, okay? You got to clarify them, you got to write them down, but also communicate them over and over and over, okay? If your team doesn't really know where you're going, then or where they're going, they're going to create their own directions, and you can imagine where that leads. In fact, some of you are living that out right now. Leadership clarity, it really is the first step towards accomplishing progress, accomplishing your mission. Now, with that, the second leadership action is align people and resources to your unique identity and your mission. Now, mission drift, right? You maybe have heard that phrase. Mission drift happens naturally, okay? But alignment requires intentionality. What great leaders do is they constantly bring their team back to who we are and why we do this. See, your mission as a local church, right? I talk to pastors a lot. Your mission as a local church, well, it's your verbiage around the Great Commission. So your mission isn't really all that probably unique, but how you do it, your context, your community, culture, all of those things really are unique to you. And so you need to align people and align all of your resources to both of those things. All right, number 3, build and develop leaders, not just programs. Okay, programs are great to a certain extent, but programs don't multiply. That's what leadership does. So if you really want your ministry, your church to grow, invest in people, not in products. All right, number 4, you have to create rhythms of accountability and measurement. Responsibility, giving away responsibility is really important. We call it delegation. But responsibility given away without accountability really is just an opportunity. I mean, if you ask somebody to send an email and you give them the responsibility to send out maybe a church-wide email, great. But if there isn't any accountability to that, well, you've just given them an option, an opportunity to send an email. But when there's accountability, all of a sudden, now we're holding people, holding their feet to the proverbial fire with that responsibility. And to help do that, you know what great leaders do? They measure progress. But they don't measure it for control, they measure it for clarity. So when you're holding someone accountable, we don't want to hold them accountable with, a preference. That didn't feel good to me. I mean, maybe that's okay here and there, but we really want to hold people accountable to progress. And progress can be measured. So when we give somebody a task, we give them authority, responsibility, we want to hold them accountable. And we want to put some metrics around that so that we can measure together how we're doing as an organization. All right, 2 more. Number 5. You really have to model emotional and spiritual health yourself. Okay, your church, and this is hard, but it's just true. Your church really can't be more spiritually alive than you are. As a leader, kind of like a mom in a home, in an organization, the leader sets the tone. And so you're setting the tone for everything, including the health and the rhythms and the spiritual kind of vibrancy of your church. And so you've got to prioritize that, and you've got to model it in your church. Last thing, and this may be the hardest one if we're honest, you got to lead through change with courage and clarity. The mission never changes, but your methods must. Every method, every model for ministry was created for a moment. And the day after that model was created, that moment began to get antiquated, and the next day a little bit more old, and the next day a little older. Some of us are, trying to run ministry models that were really put in place before the internet was made available publicly. I mean, come on, right? So the mission never changes, but the methods absolutely have to change. And that's what courageous leaders do. They create safe change for others by modeling faith and focus and a willingness to make things better, even if it means making things different. Listen, these six actions, and we just covered them very quickly, right? They're not flashy, they're not complicated, but they are powerful, especially when you practice them consistently. When you kind of build them into the leadership of your organization, right? Something really does begin to shift. And you know what pressure does? It starts turning into progress. And you stop leading reactively, and you start leading with so much more purpose. So let me give you kind of a to-do for this week. Just this week, just do this one thing, very easy. Write those 6 things down and rate yourself from a scale of 1 to 10 on each of these things. And then after you kind of look at that scale, and just be honest, nobody's going to see it but you. Where do you feel the most confident? And counter, where do you feel the most pressure? In fact, if you're not really sure what you're not great at, here's a hint. Where do you feel the most pressure? Pressure is so connected to maybe an area of weakness for us. So whatever that lowest score is on that ranking scale for you, of those 6 different leadership actions, I think that should be your next leadership priority. Now, you may not be gifted by God to be great in all 6 of those things. However, all 6 of those things have to be present in the leadership of your church. So bring a key volunteer, ask an elder to engage in a new way. Or if you're a little bit larger and have some staff, surround yourself with some people who do bring some of those skills to the table. This is really where intentionality begins. And if some of you, by the way, if some of you would like some help kind of walking through that process, I'd love for you to check out one of our leadership lab. I offer leadership labs digitally where we dig deep over multiple modules into things. I also do a lot of these in person, 1 and 2 day kind of workshops with churches and organizations. I also, though, offer a free intentional pastor roundtable. You can learn more about that. I do them every month. Just go to gavinadams.com to learn more. And together, you know what we can do? We can turn that tension into traction. So you can lead your church from stuck to strategic.